here and attending our tonight's program on Women in Diplomacy in conjunction with the celebration of Kartini Day or Hari Kartini in Indonesia. We are pleased to announce that this program is organized by OIC Youth Indonesia in collaboration with Al Sharq Youth Indonesia. Ladies and gentlemen, as we are about to begin, I will be explaining few rules and would like to seek your cooperation in completing tonight's webinar. As we begin, please kindly switch off your microphones to avoid any interruptions. Cameras are allowed during the panel discussion, therefore, please be ensured that appropriate dress or outfit is being used. Questions are open at the end of the discussion. Please use raise hand feature or you can simply type the discussion on the panel below. Thank you for your kind cooperation and attention. Good evening to our honorable speakers, guests, and all the respectable participants for tonight's webinar. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to be the MC for tonight's program. I am Adia Laras on behalf of Al Sharq Youth Indonesia Hub. I would like to extend a very warm welcome to all of you. We appreciate you taking time off your busy schedules to join here with us virtually tonight on this special discussion. We hope you will learn a lot from the panel discussion as we have lined up for you to be fruitful and engaging along with these amazing alpha females in this room. Firstly, I shall assist you through tonight's rundown. We will start off with the welcoming speeches from our honored guests, and then after we will have the floor or screen to our outstanding speakers for the panel discussion. Last but not least, there will be a Q&A session that will be answered directly by our speakers. Without further ado, may I invite everyone to invoke the Almighty, ladies and gentlemen. We would like to start this program a prayer. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. To begin this program, we are pleased to have Ibu Yuli Mumpuni Widarso as member International Cooperation Commission, Indonesia Council of Ulama. Let us welcome Ibu Yuli to deliver the welcoming speech. Ibu Yuli, the screen is yours.
Okay, so I unmute already my microphone. Now, can you hear my voice?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes, Bunda, mantap.
Is it clear? Is it clear?
Very clear.
Yes,
Okay,
very clear.
Very clear.
Thank you so much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good evening from Jakarta to you all. And of course, to all distinguished panelists of this meeting, Your Honorable Miss Amar Sweet, Miss Rabata Tarik, Miss Fitria Iskandar, Miss Adenantera Fatma, Miss Khadijah Tirha, and Miss Astrid Najar Rizkita, of course, President of OIC Youth Indonesia, our host, and moderator of our meeting. Allow me also to greet Mr. Abdullah Ali, Regional Coordinator of Al Sharq Youth Southeast Asia, and Mr. Farid Muhammad, Hub Coordinator of Al Sharq Youth Indonesia, and of course to all distinguished participants. Welcome to the second meeting of the OIC Young Women Forum. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to take this opportunity to express our thanks and appreciations to our dear partners, Al Sharq Youth in Istanbul and Al Sharq Youth East Asia in Kuala Lumpur for their generosity to continue supporting our programs. The organization of the second meeting with their valuable support is undoubtedly reflecting our strong commitment and spirit of partnership to attain our shared objective of Young Women Forum, initiated by OIC Youth Indonesia during our meeting last January to implement the directions given by the Islamic Conference of Youth and Sport Ministers held in Baku, Azerbaijan in 2018. that launched the OIC Youth Strategy, an important document and commitment. Therefore, we are grateful for all of you active participation, so we may continue implementing the OIC Youth Strategy. Ladies and gentlemen, this second meeting suggested an interesting topic, namely women in diplomacy. It is indeed a relevant topic to the objective of the Young Women Forum, as among others, is to encourage women representation in executive to achieve an ideal percentage 30%. As a veteran diplomat, I would say that diplomacy is still a man world. Even there are increasing number of great women appointed as foreign minister or state secretary or high representative of the Union for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, whom entitled as the top diplomat of the country. Currently, there are 32 female foreign ministers, but it is out of 132 UN member countries, still far from the for our target to reach 30%. Yeah. This meeting is expected, of course, to discuss ways and means to close that ideal target. Talking about women in diplomacy, you should aware that to be a diplomat, we have to meet its qualification and competencies selected during the recruitment process and attending the diplomatic school. It is for a professional diplomat under the one-track diplomacy, which is still the actor is the government actor. Even now, we also understand there are multi-track diplomacy that also involve non-government actors, such as NGOs, and including women on your NGOs or organizations. On this government track, as a professional diplomat, averagely in every country, they only recruit about maximum 100 fresh graduates to attend a year diplomatic school. In Indonesia, since 2005, about 50% of them are women. We are very proud of that. 50% are women. It is really a great achievement by our women. Yeah, our foreign minister, even Her Excellency Mrs. Retno Marsudi, she was ambassador in Oslo, Norway, and in The Hague, the Netherlands, is a kind of a successful story in our diplomacy, due to the fact that Indonesia is a majority Muslim country that commonly understand this traditional Muslim country only offers limited participation of women in executive. According to me, diplomatic work is suitable to women because its diplomatic functions, as stipulated in the Vienna Convention of 1961, that composed of representing the country in the accredited country or in the international organization, negotiating any issues on behalf of the country, promoting relation with other countries, protecting their nationals abroad, and reporting their diplomatic activities to the home country. Those are very close to women characters, such as we are friendly, warm welcome, patient, attentive, empathic, sincere, open-minded, helpful, positive thinking. Yeah. So, but nowadays there are also unconventional requirements to be a successful diplomat. They not only have to meet that high quality of a diplomat, that high qualification of a diplomat, but also have to exercise hospitality in doing diplomacy to make other people feel comfortable engaging with them. They should be a hospitable diplomat because their main job is having friends and building friendship to support the achievement of their diplomatic mission in accordance to their national interest. I believe you will agree that this job is so dear to women. Besides, as we observe that the international relations currently proceeding a dynamic development as reflected in its agenda, such as gender equality and women empowerment, elimination of discrimination against women, elimination of violations against women in politics and public life, women access to education, and early marriage, even on security issues, including on counterterrorism. Sadly to say that we follow with deep concern that women involvement in terrorist act is increasing. This has realized us to include also women in counter-terrorism program in our national police unit, because they have program of the radicalization and so on. Moreover, Foreign Minister Retno Marsudi, who bears our high commitment to contribute to the promotion of international peace and security, has adopted an agenda called 20 Years of Women, Peace and Security Agenda. Indonesian women continue to contribute toward peace. One of his agenda is supporting the important role of women in the peace building in Afghanistan. Under this agenda that was introduced during the opening of the Jakarta Dialogue, attended by dozens of Afghan women from various backgrounds held in Jakarta in December 2020, our minister offered a capacity building program to Afghan women. So to make them aware that women has their unique role. Women has their unique role to promote peace and security in the country. Yeah. At that time, she also asserted that if we want to invest in peace, then we should invest in women. There can be no peace nor stability in Afghanistan or in other countries. Without the involvement of women, there will be no peace. Whilst in the multilateral fora, I should also mention the multilateral fora. As you might be aware, every March, the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women brings together international organizations, governments, politicians, and activists from around the world to discuss advances and setbacks in gender equality and place new priorities on the global agenda. In 2021 session last March, the team united two strands of work that until recently were treated separately, namely women's political participation and the elimination of violations against women. The UN Secretary General in this report expressed concern that increasing levels of violence perpetrated against women in public life, which seek to stop women from accessing power and silence them so as to limit their perspective in policy formulation. In addition to being taken up in plenary session, the topic of violence against women in politics and public life was also the focus of numerous side events. We are encouraged by this UN Commission of the Status of Women sessions, yearly session, that featured women's testimonies, distributed new data, and presented emerging solutions to this problem around the world. See, there is wider area of diplomacy where women could participate in, from women capacity building to women rights campaign, to bring about global attention to eliminate violence against women in politics and public life. Ladies and gentlemen, In concluding this remark, I would remind that approaching the 21st century challenges that offers the advancement of IT, information and technology, the world become more digitalized, including in diplomacy. When we are facing this worldwide pandemic, diplomacy has adopted digital diplomacy. This situation provides challenges and opportunities at the same time, such as on improving innovation and providing qualified education to cope the future challenges where workplaces will be occupied by technology. Are we women ready to respond it properly? Finally, I would express hope that this meeting would identify concrete steps to enhance the role of women in diplomacy, particularly on economic diplomacy, to strengthen women SMEs capacity. For we fully understand that this pandemic has also restarted economic problem worldwide that suffered women. Well, let's commence our discussion and I hope you will enjoy it. Thank you for your kind attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Bu Yuli, for the
Thank
wonderful.
you.
Now we move on to the main agenda, to the panel discussion on women in diplomacy by our esteemed panel speakers. And therefore, I will pass this to our moderator for tonight's program, Elena Cabrera, our program lead of Al Sharq Youth Indonesia. You may lead the floor.
Thank you very much to Ms. Adi Jamil. Is my voice audible?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So, good morning or good afternoon or good evening, depending on when you are. Welcome to Women in Diplomacy webinar. So, first, let me introduce myself. My name is Elena Cabrera. I'm the project manager of Al Sharq Indonesia Hub and also the Deputy Secretary General of OIC Indonesia. I'll be responsible for hosting this presentation today. But before we jump to the panel session, I'd like to welcome Ms. Bunga Rizka Ayunurlita to be the opening speaker of this panel session. So to Ms. Bunga Rizka Ayunurlita, please, time is yours.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. All honored guest speaker and participants attending today, Ms. Yuli Mumpuni Widarso, Ms. Ruta Batarik, Ms. Amas Sowit, Ms. Fitria Iskandar, Ms. Khadijah Tirha, and also the special guest, Mr. Tantan Taufik Lubis from ICYF, and Ms. Astrid Nadia Rizkita, the President of OIC Youth Indonesia. All Arshak Youth Indonesia and OIC Youth Indonesia members. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, let us give thanks and gratitude to Allah the Almighty, who has given us mercy and blessing until today, despite challenging times. Although we are still unable to do in-person seminars, we nevertheless are determined to forge ahead with these webinars. First and foremost, I would like to thank all Arshak Youth Indonesia and OIC Youth Indonesia Committee for organizing this event and giving myself the chance to give this welcoming speech. We are all gathered here today for the second meeting OIC Young Women Forum, Women in Diplomacy, in this interactive dialogue webinar format, where each of us honored guest speakers will touch on and discuss topics regarding women in diplomacy. As we all know, the global participation rate of women in national level parliaments are higher today than ever before in the past years. In 2013, women only accounted for about 8% of all national leaders and 2% of presidential posts. However, in 2019, the participant rate of women in national level parliaments increased to 24.5%. Although there are still many challenges to be faced by women to be able to go into diplomacy, the increasing rate shows how women are more than capable today to be able to go into national level parliaments and become leaders of nation. What drives women to be able to participate within the governments is in fact that in these present days, women has almost unlimited access to higher education as do men. Since the 90s, women has outnumbers men in college enrollment and completion, and women these days are more likely than men to continue education after college. Higher education allows for women to be able to position themselves higher in their success to their careers and leadership position. Despite the higher achievements of women for leadership in governments today, we cannot dismiss the fact that there are still countries that are yet to acknowledge the participations of women in diplomacy, like even in OIC members itself. The main issue being gender inequality is in education and career advancements in OIC member countries. There's still a limited chance and access there is for women in those countries for higher education and pursue career in national parliaments. In terms of education, literacy rates of OIC country members indicate that a total of around 10.8% disparity between men and women being less able to read and write. The rates for school enrollments and graduations for women in OIC country members are also at a disadvantage as compared to men, especially in primary education, according to data in 2014. In terms of the role of women in decision making, it has been indicated that while there are already 34% rate of women in the non-OIC developing countries, which are able to secure positions in the senior management, the OIC member countries average is still at 16.5%, which is almost half less. Quite a large gap that we have to work on. Lastly, in terms of women's role in NGOs, while it is apparent that many women in OIC member countries become successful in their advocacy roles, there is still a large gap between men and women. And there are still many who remains outside and receive less attention, especially in OIC member developing countries. Knowing this fact, it is a calling for all of us to do something and improve gender equality in OIC member countries. Starting from the role of women in diplomacy that will be discussed today, how do women represent themselves in diplomacy? Finding the synergy of women's role in community, national leadership, and decision-making participations. And last but not least, what is our strategy moving forward to improve young women empowerment and leadership? To end my welcome speech today, I would like to quote my favorite quotes from Mrs. Retno Marsudi, an inspiring woman diplomat from Indonesia who has been serving as the Minister for Foreign Affairs in Working Cabinet since 2014. She was the first female minister appointed to the post. In her recent sharing sessions for International Women's Day this year, she said that investing in women is investing for a brighter future. Gender equality is a call for all of us women and also men, because women's rights is a human right, and we will all be stronger together if we stand together equally. Though it seems that we are only exchanging words to each other today, it is the echo of those words that will spread and become an inspiration, encouragement, and action to people beyond those attending the webinar today that will change the world, because we are all in this together. Alone, what we do seems small, but together we can achieve great things, right? So that is all I have to say for today's welcoming speech. Thank you for opportunity to share, and I return the time and place to the moderator. Thank you very much, and happy Ramadan Mubarak.
Thank you very much to Ms. Kayu. So before we jump to the panel session, I would like to explain a bit about our webinar tonight regarding the women in diplomacy. So as of October 2019, the global participation rate of women in national level parliament is 24.5%. And in 2013, women accounted for 8% of all nation leaders and 2% of all presidential posts. Furthermore, 75% of all female prime ministers and presidents have taken office in the past 2 decades. Women may face a number of challenges that affect their ability to participate in politics. Hello?
Yeah, you're audible now.
Oh, okay. So, well, let me repeat a bit. I think there is some technical problem that has muted my voice. So, uh, in 2013, many women face a number of challenges that affect their ability to participate in political life and become political leaders. So, therefore, to know more about women representation in leadership and decision making, we have several amazing speakers tonight. There are Ms. Amal Souid, the former member of the Tunisian parliament, and Astrid Nadia Rizkita, the president of OIC Youth Indonesia, Ms. Fitria Iskandar, the project leader of Asia Pacific Climate Change, Ms. Ruta Batorik, the Asia Regional Chair at IAPSS, and also Ms. Khadija Tilha, the intern at International Project Department ICYF. So first speaker, we would like to invite Ms. Amal Souid. Ms. Amal Souid was a member of the Tunisian parliament at the age of 25, and she was the youngest woman elected to the parliament. She was also the president of Tunisian Eastern Europe Friendship Group at the National Assembly. And in 2017 to 2018, she was the rapporteur member of Education, Youth, Cultural Affairs, and Scientific Research Committee. Then in 2018 to 2019, she became the rapporteur member of Human Rights and Foreign Affairs Committee. Without any further ado, please welcome Ms. Amal Souid. Time is yours.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Elena, and thank you for all ladies. And I'd like to thank Sharq Youth too for this honorable invitation and this opportunity to talk with you, ladies. So, as Elena said, I was the youngest member in the Tunisian parliament, and believe me, it's not easy to be. It's challenging, but I made it. In the first, I want to say that when I travel abroad and when people ask me, where are you from? I said, I'm from Tunisia. They say, Indonesia? No, I'm from Tunisia, the north of Africa, not in Asia. So yes, it's link between us. I'm so excited to be with you this day. And here, I want to talk about women's political situation in Tunisia. Tunisia is currently ranked 123rd on the Global Gender Gap Index according to the World Economic Forum, and is therefore one of the highest ranking countries in the Arab world. Tunisia is viewed as a relatively advanced country in terms of women's rights. Tunisia has repeatedly expressed its willingness to meet international norms and standards with regards to both human rights and human rights protection and women's rights. To this end, the country has adopted several national measures regarding women's rights. Tunisia has pioneered women's rights in the Arab world and MENA region by abolishing polygamy, creating civil judicial process for divorce, and requiring mutual consent for divorce. In 1956, just after our independence in Tunisia, the Code of Personal Status was innocent. It's a document that has undergone heavy reform since its inception. This document has abolished polygamy and um, repudiation, enabled women to ask for divorce, enacted a minimum age for marriage, and ordered the consent of both spouses before marriage. Moreover, women earned the right to vote in 1957 before USA and many European and Arabian countries. And in 1959, women were able to seek office. The Constitution of Tunisia promulgates the principle of equality, which has been applied favorably for women within the judiciary system, enabling them to enter a traditional job sector, for example, medicine with Habiba Jilani, the first female surgeon, the army and the engineering too, as well as open bank accounts and establish business in 1962, were able to access birth control, and by 1965, abortion was legalized 8 years before American women gained access. Besides, Tunisia is famous in the Arab world for its stance on women's equality. It's home to one of the most progressive gender parity laws in the world. This law requires political parties to alternate the members of their candidates lists between men and women, and to have half of their lists headed by women. And I want to highlight something, that our electoral system based on closed lists. These measures are a natural progression from the 2014 Tunisian constitution, then our new constitution, which declares that men and women have equal rights and duties and are equal before the law without any discrimination. So also in 2018, with the women winning 47% of municipal council, Tunisia's new system has resulted in some of their highest representation of women in legislature compared to any other African or Middle Eastern states. So now, returning to 2011, just after the revolution, the final number of women deputies, member of parliament, reached a total of 67 members from 217. That means 31%, by which Tunisia outpaced by far not only the Arab regions average of 17.8%, but also the European and the US ones, by securing almost 1/3 of the seats in the Constituent Assembly. Women deputies were in a position of decisively influence the drafting of Tunisia's new constitution. Women were represented. Women are represented in the most NCI, the Parliament of Tunisia, decision-making bodies. And I want to notice that Ms. Meherzia Al-Abidi, a leading member of Ennahda party, was appointed first vice president of the assembly. By the way, Ms. Meherzia Al-Abidi passed away 4 months ago. May God bless her soul. It was one of the greatest women leader in Tunisia, and a big supporter for me personally. So political progress for women requires a contextualized intersectional approach to explore the correlation between gender, poverty, and power inequality, not only between men and women, but also between gender, poverty, and power inequality, and not only by between men and women, but also among men and women, based on class, geographic space, and access to socioeconomic developments such health, education, and electricity. One factor. Hello?
Yes,
You're audible.
I hear you.
I think I have a technical matter here in internet. Can I make the camera off? Hello?
Yes, yes, sure.
So I said that I can't hear. Hello?
We can hear you.
Okay. So one factor exacerbation the issue is the channeling of resources inequally, both in the public sector, such as electricity, and private sector, social stigmatization, health, disabilities, illiteracy, and rural marginalization have been recognized as the most prominent causes of gender inequalities in daily life and politics. So, women constitute approximately 50% of the potential Tunisian electorate. Despite this statistic show that female political participation in Tunisia is significantly lower in the interior regions than the coastal ones. This is particularly disconcerting when taking into account that that voter registration from interior governorate is higher from women than men. So here I want to talk about some barriers or some challenges I faced personally during my mission in the parliament. The question of tradition. You know that in the marginalized region, women are traditionally more absent from public space than in the other region of the country. One likely reason for this difference is the economic and the lack of opportunities like education, trainings. And despite the fact that both the electoral laws of 2011 and 2014 adopted parity and alternation between men and women, it was deemed that the electoral law did not do enough to ensure parity in the IRP. And also the presence of women in government, political parties, administration is very limited. Also, the familial responsibility is another problem. In addition to their work, women in Tunisia do most of the housework and care for children. These responsibilities give little time for women to be dedicated to other activity, especially with the absence of a child care system within political parties and the parliament, and the inconvenient times of the meetings, which are often held in the evening or another time not convenient for us. This could be done. Maybe we can fix this problem with providing childcare or financial support to cover childcare costs as part of campaign expenses, but we don't achieve this goal yet in Tunisia. And maybe personally, I see that the big problem or the big challenge are the lack of confidence of women. What I mean, for example, personally, I was a young woman and I was in a place of authority, the legislature authority, and many people said, "Oh, can she do something efficient?" So they see that women, men in authority more efficient than women, and this is very challenging. But by time and by hard work, um, I can prove that women can do more than men even. And there is some other problem. For example, we haven't advisors, personal advisors in our parliament. So you have to do all your work by yourself, the research, media, all these things. You have to do it by yourself. This is all. I hope that you understand it. And if you have any question, I'm here. Thank you again.
Okay, thank you very much to Ms. Amal Sweet. So what I've heard that there are 53 women in Tunisia parliament. Female political representation increased significantly, and in around 2000, began at 79 parliament seats held by women after 2014 parliamentary. And also Ms. Amal Sweet mentioned some problems that faced by women in Tunisia, like for example the lack of confidence. For example, like many people still underestimate women in authority, and they still think that men is much better than women. So I think this is such a good topics that we can discuss in Q&A session, that how to solve all these problems, especially how to change the mindset of those people who still think that men is more superior than women, because basically women and men were born equally. So let's move to the next speaker. We have Miss Astrid Nadia Rizkita. Is Miss Astrid Nadia Rizkita here?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, so let me introduce Miss Astrid Nadia Rizkita. She is the president of OIC Indonesia. And OIC Indonesia is the umbrella organization of 29 national Muslim youth organization in Indonesia. Work closely in cooperation with the Indonesian Youth Council. Ms. Astrid Nadia Rizkita is also the model OIC project country coordinator start from January 2020 to this day. In 2017-2019, she worked as a research assistant at the Faculty of Economic and Business in Syarif Hidayatullah, Jakarta, on various topics such as religiosity, social justice, legal pluralism, cryptocurrency, and blockchain from an academic point of view. And she has produced materials for presentation and panel session with associate professor for various conferences. So without any further ado, let's invite Ms. Astrid Nadia Rizkita. Time is yours.
Thank you so much, dear Elena, for giving me the floor. Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Your Excellency, our senior Ambassador Yuli Mumpuni Widarso, member of International Cooperation Commission at Majelis Ulama Indonesia, or Indonesia Ulama Council. Also our advisor and also alumni of Al-Sharq Youth Conference in 2019, Ms. Bunga Rizka Ayu. Our senior, Mr. Tantan Taufik Lubis, who is also present here with us, the chairman of Indonesia National Youth Council. Respected speakers, Ms. Amal Sweet, as the former MP for Tunisia, glad to have you here, and also Ms. Fitria, who is also Indonesian activist, active in ASEAN Youth Forum and also in Asia Pacific regarding environment. And also we have Ms. Rutaba Tariq, the Asian Chair for IAPSS, or the International Association for Political Science Students, Ms. Khadija Tirha as intern at the ICYF, and dear audience, colleagues, brothers and sisters. First of all, we thank Allah for giving us this opportunity, the health, for us to gather in this forum, not only to discuss about women in diplomacy, which is the selected theme for this evening, but also the opportunity to reconnect or silaturahim in this blessed month of Ramadan, inshallah. And may we make the best of this holy month. And of course, salawat and salam goes to our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam for his exemplary leadership and legacy. And also regarding the theme at hand, as stated by the host and the previous speakers, this is the second meeting of the OIC Young Women Forum, in which the first session was held earlier this year in January. And we're very glad in this occasion to have partnership with Al-Sharq Youth Indonesia Hub. So this hub was inaugurated and launched last year. And already within this 1 year, we have engaged various youth in terms of activities virtually due to the pandemic, and in cooperation with OIC Youth Indonesia. So perhaps for the audience, you may notice the designations or the profiles of the speakers is very diverse. We have former MP, we have activists, we have former ambassador, we have academicians. So the underlying idea is that we believe that diplomacy is a skill, you know, how we carry ourselves, how we negotiate, because basically in terms of, as mentioned by the previous speakers regarding the multi-track diplomacy, there are many issues that we have to raise, we have to promote, be it economy, culture, environment, political issues. And if we look into the SDGs of 17 points, and not to mention the, it's from the UN, but from the OIC, we have the program of action enlisting several points as well. So diplomacy is a cross-cutting issue. And we also refer to our law, or the Undang-Undang number 37, year 1999, in which the actor of diplomacy is not only by the state, be it the executive, in this case, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, also the legislative, meaning the parliament, but also it is possible for the citizens of Indonesia, be it in the NGO, in the civil society, private sector, to be actors of diplomacy. And we're happy to have speakers from various backgrounds so that we can see how they promote their country. In this case, Indonesia. We also have Italy in the panel, and also Tunisia, how they promote and strive and advocate for issues that are of their concern. For example, in the parliament, there are many, of course, multilateral platforms as well. In the UN, of course, under the General Assembly. Other than that, they have special bodies like the ECOSOC, focusing on economic and social issues, one of which is also concerning the youth. And in the OIC, we have the PUIC of the parliaments of the OIC, And the parliament has many commissions as well. And of course, each of these issues are of the concern of international forums as well. And as youth, because I represent YC Indonesia here, our organization as the umbrella has been involved in diplomacy as well, in a way, be it directly or indirectly. And one of our representatives or the core members are also taking part as we speak in the working group of the G20 on labor as preparation for the presidency of Indonesia starting effectively in 2022. So a lot of things have been highlighted by previous speakers, but the thing is that regarding women representation and in terms of like demanding or striving for equality, it is important for us as women, as aspiring leaders, as leaders, to be exemplary and to put quality to the table so that we have something to offer other than just tokenism. Just because we're women, we have to be represented. And we're glad because, of course, in Al-Sharq Youth Indonesia core team, we have 7 members in the core team, and 4 of them are women, and they're very active. And also in our youth organizations as well, our governing board member is consisting majority of women, and they're very active as well. So another thing that we need to highlight is that it's important for us to have balance, work-life balance. You know, the pandemic, it's almost, there's no barrier almost, because most of the activities are virtual, and then we have the responsibility to take care of the people around us. And Alhamdulillah, women are gifted as multitaskers with many responsibilities, and yet they still rise up to all the challenges they face. And this is something that we would like to dig deeper to our speakers present. And I think I'll be open for questions, and that's all from me. Thank you so much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much to Ms. Asnadia Diskita. I would like to give some a bit of highlight from Ms. Asnadia Diskita's speech. It is that diplomacy is actually a skill, like how to negotiate, and there are so many issues that we have to raise or promote regarding the academic, culture, politics, or even gender. And diplomacy is not only by the state. In this case of the state is like the foreign ministry or the parliament, but also it is possible for citizen, private sector, or that they can be the actor of diplomacy. And as a youth, we have been involved in diplomacy as well, directly or indirectly. Like she mentioned several examples of women in action in she mentioned several examples of women action in various fields, including in parliament or in NGOs such as in OIC Indonesia or in Al-Sharq Indonesia. So let's move to the next speaker. Here we have Ms. Ruta Batorik. Ms. Ruta Batorik is a researcher and public social policy coordinator with special expertise on youth engagement, multi-sectoral collaboration, and project management. She has experience leading grassroots initiatives, building organizational frameworks, working closely on strategy, oversight, and fundraising. In November 2020 to February 2021, she was the research consultant at Pakistan Institute of Legislative Development and Transparency. She is also Asian Regional Chair at International Association for Political Science Students from January 2020 to this day. So without any further ado, let's welcome Ms. Ruta Batorik. Ms. Ruta Batorik, time is yours. Hello? Is Ms. Ruta Batorik here?
Moderator,
Yes.
I was informed that she'll join at 9:10
Oh,
because it's still iftar time in Pakistan. Perhaps another speaker could.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, while we're waiting Ms. Ruta Batorik to break fasting, I think it'd be better if we move to the next speaker, Ms. Fitria Iskandar. So, let me introduce Ms. Fitria Iskandar. Oh, is she here? Is she in the room? To Ms. Fitria Iskandar.
Yes, I'm here.
So let me introduce Ms. Fitria Iskandar. She is an environment youth activist working since 2015 on climate change and marine debris issues. She is a medical student from Tanjung Pura University. She has spoken at the UNESCAP and UNDESA Asia Pacific stakeholder webinar about marine plastic pollution. Also, she has been part of APFSD Youth Forum 2019 as climate change panelist, bringing up river littering and how youth are saving the environment in Pontianak City. Now she's establishing and leading a project named Asia Pacific Climate Project that promoting SDG 13 to 15 and providing an online platform for youth in Asia Pacific to interact and engage in environmental issues. So to Ms. Fitria Iskandar, this time is yours.
Thank you, Elena, for the time. And I would like to greet all of the audience and also the speakers here. Good evening. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you for OIC Youth Indonesia and Al Shark for having me today. And it's an honor for me to be here along with the amazing woman that already proven for work in diplomacy and also for the woman empowerment. So I'm Fitria, you can call me 50. I'm a medical student right now. I'm in the clerkship student, in the clerkship phase, that working in the hospital for 2 years. And yeah, my background is a medical student and also the environmental activist. And yeah, today maybe it is a kind of a different perspective of women diplomacy itself that I will talk, bringing up about the climate change and about the woman and climate change perspective. And yeah, as we know that we are now in the climate change situation where all of the work and all of the effort is still working to reduce how we can fight and prevent to the temperature of the earth increasing until 2.0, and we still need to fight to prevent it and keep it on until 1.50. And regarding to the climate change, if we are talking about the woman and climate change, of course, a woman is the most affected group that will affect by the climate change itself, because in the United Nations itself figures that 80% of people that displaced is majority is a woman, and the roles as primary caregivers and provides of food and fuel make them more vulnerable when flooding and drought occur, which is we know that the climate change itself and the increasing of the earth temperature will bringing more drought, and the dry season is longer than usual. And in the Paris Agreement 2015 has made specific provision for the empowerment of women, recognizing that they are disproportionately impacted. And it is important that the climate change itself is not only how can we prevent the world into become a no turning point, but it's also how can we adapt, which is in the term of adaptation, mitigation, and restoration itself. And this woman involvement is very important because the heat waves, the droughts, the rising sea levels, and extreme storms will disproportionately affects the woman. Because like I said before, the woman likely to live in a more poverty than men, and also have less access to basic human rights, like the ability to freely move and acquire land, and face systemic violence that escalate during the periods of instability. And if we talk about the climate change in a bigger perspective, it is not only about how can we save the earth, but how can we make our earth, our situation, our world is in peace. Because there are some research that prove the instability in some country caused by the climate change, because people, it's our nature to find better place, it's our nature to find a good place to habit. If there's a place that inhabitable for human, we are tend to move and find a more suitable place. Then this is sometimes can trigger the war and trigger the instability itself. And who will be affected more here? Of course, as a woman, as someone that have more responsibility in a home and take care of the children, and so on. And these factors and many more mean that as a climate change intensifies, women will struggle the most. In fact, that the Paris agreement, like I said before, is already include specific provisions to ensure women receive support to cope with the hazard of climate change. And this is like for the introduction, why I talk about the woman and the climate change itself, because there is a big correlation between the effect of the climate change and how can women involved in a fight the climate change itself, whether it's in the downstream level, which is in the grassroots level, and also in the upstream level, which is in the diplomacy, advocacy, and the policy making recommendations. And for me personally, as someone that already work in the environment for 5 years, I start my journey in an international level, which is I got a chance to talk in Asia Pacific Sustainable Development Forum in Bangkok in 2018, and it was my first time to join such as a policy making recommendation and joining in the draft making recommendation to bring up in the bigger forum that held by United Nations of Economic Social Commission of Asia Pacific, or UNSCAP. And that was my first time to involve in a such as we can call it a policy recommendation, because it was there are a lot of youth that gathered in the Asia Pacific to discuss and make a recommendation that will bring up in the United Nations level, in the UN level. And of course, I think this is important because for 4 years experiences in the grassroots level, I think this is important for me as a representative of the local people and also the women that can raise the voice how was it happen in the grassroots community. And after that, it is my transition to work more in advocacy and policy making recommendations. And so far now, I'm establishing Asia Pacific Climate Project, which is an online platform to provide youth in Asia Pacific to raise their voice in the international level, at least in the regional level, which is in Asia Pacific regional. And this is important because as someone that try to empower everyone, especially empower women, I represent a woman that sometimes I was called to be like, what is your experience that affected by the climate change that you can talk us about? In my city itself, especially in the local community, in my city Pontianak, we have some of what we call it, a place that there are a lot of it is a local community that work together, working together, especially in the environment, raising the awareness of the environment itself, and talking about the marine debris. It will have correlation because in my city we have a longest river in Indonesia. And how can those local community empower themselves, especially in mother, as because there are a lot of, we call it PKK, ibu-ibu PKK. So a lot of these mothers or housewives working together, like trying to make recycling stuff, handmade form, and then how they make a garbage bank, a trash that they try to collect a trash or garbage that can be useful for people and have an economic value. And then how can I can see this, the mother have a bigger role in here, because they can help us to make the movement more bigger and sustainability, because in the local community, it is some part of the city, we are not only have one, but also it's around 2 or 3 local community, or we call it a village, a guidance village that have work together with the government, the Pontianak major also. And this is important, like how mothers can help us, because it is not only the youth that work in that community, that work in the local community to build it, to have a sustainable program, and also to educate people how to take care of the river, not taking the river as a trash bin, and how to do recycling. But also it is important how the mothers itself, as the part of local community, the biggest part of local community, can help us to move the people, like encourage the people, and also encourage the children to join the program also. And I see this very, very helpful for women that involved in here. And I see that yeah, that's their part to work in the downstream level. And I see what can I do in the upstream level, which is I was invited in SEO Initiative Network on Green Growth in the earlier 2021, and talking about how the youth itself taking part in the green recovery. I think this will be like high gap, because I was in the grassroots, and also I need to talk in the upstream level, which is it's more practical, in the more practical and more political language, that I'll explaining about how youth can involve in the world post COVID-19 itself, and how can youth also engage in the grassroots community. And this is how the woman itself, especially, to help not only become the change maker, but also become the part of the biggest structure of the change maker itself. And I see this is the place that I was grown, and I still think that what can I do for the future? Because for if we are talking about the environment issue, especially in the climate change, it's not only for temporary or 5 or 10 years, but it will be forever, because this issue, this earth is keep degrading, the temperature keep increasing, we are keep emitting our carbon emissions, and so on. So I saw that there will be many correlation. And if you're talking about the woman, and I am as a woman that work a lot in the environment, I experience a lot of things that happen, because it's not only talking about the river, but also as someone that raised in one of the biggest island in Indonesia is Borneo Island, which is every year we are also experiencing with the forest fire. And of course, the forest fire will cause hazardous smoke that will threat our health. And also in my perspective as the healthcare workers, the climate change, woman, and health, it's much there are a lot of much correlation. And that's how I think I can try to work more in advocacy, and also in the policy making recommendations, since I get a privilege to talk in international level. I get a privilege to be invited to speak or something like that. And I have responsibility on my shoulder to raise the youth voice, raise what the local or grassroots communities voice about the climate change itself, because this is the most important role, that bridging the local communities or the grassroots communities to the policymakers in the national, regional, or international level. I think those are for me. Thank you. I'll give it back to Elena.
Okay, thank you very much to Ms. Fitri Iskandar. So, based on her speech, that women in climate change is the most affected by the climate change itself, because women has correlation climate change, like how women involved here and many more. And what makes it interesting is I heard that based on speakers' experience that there is a local female community or ibu-ibu PKK that work together, especially about the environment and how this local female community empower themselves. Like they make some projects that give many benefits, not only to the society, but also to the environment. And it shows how big their role is. And also, I've read about the correlation between women and the climate change, that women are less able to confront climate change. Like during extreme weather, such as droughts or floods, women tend to work more to secure household and livelihoods. And I heard that this issue will leave less time for women to access training and education, to develop skills or earn income. So I think this is a very interesting topics. Maybe we can discuss it more in Q&A sessions. So without any further ado, let's move to the next speaker. We have Ms. Ruta Batarik. Is Ms. Ruta Batarik in the room?
Yeah.
Okay, so let me introduce Ms. Ruta Batarik. Ms. Ruta Batarik is a researcher and public social policy coordinator with special expertise on youth engagement, multi-sectoral collaboration, and project management. She has experience leading grassroots initiatives, building organizational frameworks, working close on strategy, oversight, and fundraising. In November 2020 to February 2021, she was the research consultant at Pakistan Institute of Legislative Development and Transparency. And she's also Asian Regional Chair at International Association for Political Science Students, or IAPSS, from January 2020 to this day. So without any further ado, let's invite Ms. Ruta Batarik. Time is yours.
Thank you so much, Elena, for that introduction. Of course, I want to first thank OIC Youth Indonesia, and I want to thank Al Shark Indonesia, and I want to thank all the participants who haven't fallen asleep by this point. So if you're here and listening to us, thank you so much for staying tuned with what I assume is an incredibly important topic to at least me very personally, and to be very honest, to the OIC geography as well. And to that end, I want to just thank all the speakers that have come before me, that have shared information and knowledge about their own countries in a way that I hadn't learned about before. So I am definitely a bit more enriched having attended the entire conversation so far. In my conversation, really, I'm going to focus more on, the Pakistani landscape of political participation for female. I'm going to try and educate, what the landscape looks like over here. But more importantly, more than just giving you facts and figure, I want to have a more nuanced conversation around political participation or female political participation. Why it is the way it is and what is so wrong about it and what can we do to improve it. And then in the second half, hopefully I'm going to jump a bit about on diplomacy itself, women diplomacy, and some of the areas that we need to work on, because I believe there was a conversation around we need to talk about economic diplomacy of women. So I'm going to try and see if I can shed some light on that. But at the end, I want to come back to today and talk about women leadership right now in the world, and what I see has improved and what I see happening for us in the future as well. So anyone who is kind of familiar with the Pakistani landscape, Pakistan in the last election saw record-breaking representation of female legislators in the last elections. We had the highest number of candidates, 183, fielding for their candidacy in the National Assembly in both houses actually. Unfortunately, only 8 of those won, so that's just 4% of the women who actually got elected. But this is something coming from Pakistan, which already has a quota and reserved seats for women in Pakistan. What that means is essentially that in our houses we have reserved seats, so women definitely have a representation in our assemblies, respective assemblies. But the number, just eight out of 183 getting elected is a reflection of something that might be deeply wrong. But even then, Pakistan has made quite a lot of strides in women participation, politically speaking. Part of it comes from our international commitments and our participation in very key platforms like the Committee on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, CEDAW, or our commitment to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, or the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. And those are the international fronts that we have committed to. And a lot of OIC nations actually are participatory members to these platforms and covenants. And so by that extension, they are kind of implementing all of these international commitments back into their national infrastructure. But more importantly, Pakistan has had many
orders, for example, in the 1973 Constitution of Pakistan, it's key. Women's development in political arenas is key. Similarly, we have the political parties orders of 2002 and the National Assembly and the Provincial Assembly allocation of reserved seat for women and non-Muslim rules of 2002. And in the 2017 Election Act, for example, it is criminalized if anyone tries to hinder female participation in election, either as a voter or a candidate. Well, the reason I'm going all over these kind of different various rules and regulations is because I want you to understand something. On the rulemaking front, we're doing everything correct. We're taking every possible measures and policy measures to ensure that women participation is, guaranteed. But something fundamentally wrong is happening on the socio-cultural front. What we're not doing is, and what we tend to forget is, these quotas and these reservations are an exception. They are not a solution in and on of themselves. And so these are temporary measures because they are in response to something that is deeply disturbing on the level. Women on the social cultural fronts, they face immense hurdles and hurdles in political participation, which is why we introduce these quotas. For example, and I know that a lot of people here might know Benazir Bhutto. She was the first female prime minister of a Muslim majority country. So that's a remarkable feat that is achieved by Pakistan. In the same way, Fahmida Mirza was the first female parliamentary speaker in the Muslim world. So Pakistan has really been leading in the leadership arena for women and political participation. But the fact of the matter is, these ladies are an exception. They belong to a family or political lineage that has a popularity within a country. And that's not just Pakistan for you. That's the entire region. Think of Indira Gandhi, think of S. Badanaike in Sri Lanka, think of Sheikh Hasina. When you think of these women, you think of powerful political families. But what's so deeply disturbing about all of that is that these female, instead of having their own independent political identity, draw on the political lineages from their family, and in most cases from their male counterparts. So Benazir Bhutto was a woman who was suffering because her father was subjected to the cruelty of the Pakistani government. Badanaike has a husband who was Prime Minister of Sri Lanka. She was a widow. Sheikh Hasina in the same way. They're kind of a reflection, kind of growing up in the shadows of the male in their families. And so that's where we talk about females having a sort of passive identity. They, in a way that they're not on their own anything, which takes away a huge part of conversation that we need to have around their merits and demerits. These women may have done something great on their own, and these women may have done something not so great on their own. But we don't talk about this because we're constantly seeing them as victims, as living in the shadows of their fathers or husbands or brothers. And so that's one of the things that we need to address in the political arena. We need to ensure that women are independent, are kind of coming into the political arena on and in themselves independently without having family linkage or belonging to a privileged class, because that's when we're going to talk about inclusivity. That's when we're going to talk about equality and equity, and so that's very important for us to remember in the backdrop, and that's something that we need to talk about in at least in the South Asia region where I hail from. The second thing that I want to talk about quickly is diplomacy, because that's what we're here to talk about. I know that there are a lot of facts were thrown around earlier today about how, in the OIC countries, females don't really make a lot of the diplomatic circle. And that's very true. Even in developed nations like Sweden, Norway, United States, the females make up 30 to 40% of the foreign services. So the level field is not equal per se. But there are two domains to diplomacy that we need to look at. One is the track one diplomacy, which happens between governments. The other is track two and other forms of diplomacy. In track one, governments are doing fairly well. Even in Pakistan, we have some remarkable female diplomats like Temina Janjua and Maliha Lodhi, who have become sort of public figures for Muslim women across OIC. But generally speaking, in track two and otherwise, female representation has been it's not been up to par. And I here want to talk about public diplomacy in particular, which is a very strong and important aspect of diplomacy. And this is where I think OIC countries have largely lagged behind the West in general. Public diplomacy is about engaging publics of other nations and engaging with them in conversation and dialogue and cultural exchange, and to be able to understand them and help them understand what we think about the world and the world problem and how we want to resolve them, right? And that's where the OIC countries have struggled. struggle. And that's where we also need women participation at. And that kind of, stretches from all areas, from media, academia, NGO, businesses, because track 2 and onward diplomacy engages all non-governmental organizations and entities in diplomatic fronts, which is not happening. So the one thing that we need to do is ensure that our civil societies, that our academia, our media are already inclusive to women narrative, and not just sort of paint them in a victim light, but shows them as having their agency of their own. So that's one arena that I think that OIC geographies or Asia countries really need to focus on going forward, because that is also an undertapped area of diplomacy. But that's just not OIC countries, and I want to make sure that we don't seem like people who are underdeveloped or something like that. In general, the world has kind of struggled with it. Surprisingly, people don't notice what is very obvious. In the many decades that UN has existed, we've never had a female UN General Secretary. In fact, this year, it's likely that Mr. Antonio Guterres is going to be re-elected. And it's only that there's one female candidate, 34-year-old Akansha, I believe, who's now vying for that position as well. And it's surprising that in the 21st century, we're having a conversation around we need a female General Secretary, even though UN has been working on gender equality for such a long time. But that shows how established institutions have not come to a point where they're comfortable with the kind of agency they've been affording to women. So now we're talking about undeveloped nations in the OIC geography. And most important over here is having indigenous conversations, right? Because the fabric of our society is so different. We will not be able to adopt solutions from the West as much as we'd like to do it. So for example, let's talk about economic diplomacy, right? Our economies work differently because our social structures are different. Women have different economic roles in, let's say, a country like Pakistan, then let's say United States. Women are primarily caregivers, and sort of that disadvantages them considerably. That is not to say that they should not be caregivers, right? That is to say that we need to be a bit more mindful about how we structure our society, because it kind of pushes women back considerably. Just to give you like a bit of a food for thought, in a lot of ways, it is mothers who are disproportionately affected by the current economic system, not even women or young girls, but mothers, because as mothers, they have to go back and look at their children, and so their time is divided. They cannot go and succeed in their careers the same way their male counterparts can. And so, we need to revamp the entire equation around how we see businesses, how we see communities, and how we structure our social and cultural fabric to be more inclusive and all of that. So going forward, what can we do? We need to include more women in conversations around diplomacy and multi-track diplomacy. We need to ensure that women are part of NGOs and civil societies and academia, and they're very active part of government platforms and government projects going forward. I mean, a considerable example is right here with OIC Youth Platform. My own engagement with OIC Youth comes from OIC Young Leaders Summit, where there were scores of other women alongside me, shoulder to shoulder, who've now carried on to create their own projects. And that takes a lot of time. I started this journey in 2017. Some people in this audience started even before me. And it's only in 2020 that we're now sitting together in front of you, talking to you about our experiences. So diplomacy needs to start early. We need to think about it early. So if we talk and do things now, we're only going to yield the efforts 10 years from now. But again, a lot can be said on the subject, and I know that I've taken considerable amount of time. But just as an end note, because I know that Ambassador Yuli Widarso talked about economic diplomacy, she's right that post-COVID or during COVID, the informal sector has been hit the hardest, and women actually form a considerable part of the informal sector, and they form a considerable part of the healthcare sector as well. Going forward, if we have to devise a post-COVID economic recovery plan, we need to be incredibly mindful of how we're going to incorporate these women who have now had their livelihood taken from them, who are not even getting registered, by the way, in the polls because they work in the informal sector. So yeah, a 360 approach needs to be taken. We need to be a bit more inclusive, a bit more mindful, and the OIC countries, I am sure, can do so much more in this field. So yeah, with that, I'm going to kind of wrap up a bit of my end of speech, and I'm sure that we will have more discussion in the Q&A portion of the webinar today.
Okay, thank you very much to Ms. Utabatori. So there are some highlights that I want to mention here, that there are so many things to be achieved by women, especially political issues and public diplomacy. And also, an agency has an important role on promoting the woman diplomacy still lacking in OIC countries. And government must have role on providing for women in order to be active in diplomacy as the decision maker. And there is a target that need to be achieved and goal for including women in diplomacy. So therefore, we need more conversation on women in multi-track diplomacy, and diplomacy needs to start early. We need to be more inclusive and mindful, especially in OAC countries. So thank you very much to Ms. Rutaba Tarik. Let's move to the next speaker. Last but not least, she's also my friend, and currently she's doing an online internship at the ICYF International Project Department. Recently, she's got a double master degree in international relation of the MENA region and comparative analysis of Mediterranean societies between University of Turin and EGE Rabat. She is passionate about diversity and inclusion, intercultural dialogue and interfaith dialogue, global citizenship education, youth engagement, and women's empowerment. She is an international award winning as a young European volunteer by the Italian Federation VOSCIF, or Federation of Christian Organization for International Volunteer Studies. So let's welcome Ms. Khadija Tirha. To Ms. Khadija Tirha.
Alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Walaikum salam.
Distinguished guest and speaker, Miss Yuli Mumpuni Widarso, Miss Munga Rizqa, Miss Amal Sweet, Miss Rutaba, Miss Fatima, Miss Fitria, and Mr. Tantan Tawfiq. I had a great honor and privilege to meet you 2 years ago when I was in Indonesia. It was my first time, and inshallah, I would like to be back as soon as possible. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's my second time here. Last year, I also received your invitation. It's always a great pleasure to be here. Thank you, Shark Youth Indonesia and OIC Youth Indonesia. I'm really excited and emotional because I'm here also as a part of ICYF. And last year, I was just a volunteer. This time, I'm an internee. I'm doing an online internship from Italy. As you said, I'm Italian, I'm Moroccan, I'm half European, half African. Today, I would like to address my speech mentioning two important things. The first one is regarding education, and the second one is regarding the importance of being part of the decision-making process. I would like to mention a quote that really inspired my journey in advocating gender equality and women empowerment. If you educate a man, you educate an individual. But if you educate a woman, you educate a nation. Education is an integral part of every individual's life. But when girls and women are educated, countries become stronger and prosperous. This well-known African proverb has long been motivated people from all around the world to strive for education for all. Education is how we truly drive the greatest chance for women and make progress in achieving equality for all in our society. It is one thing that no one can take away from you. It's your power, it's your way of life for whatever you want and wherever you are. I'm a daughter of a strong mother who was sadly deprived of being educated because she was living in a rural area deprived from educational institutions in Morocco. As an illiterate woman, she always impressed me to the importance of education. She always telling me to find my way, empowering myself through education, and being active in the civil society. Thanks to her support and to support, of course, of my father and my brothers and sisters, I achieved part of my goals regarding education, and I ended up being the first woman of my close family with a master's degree. Women play a crucial role in our society, as we know, and the whole family is dependent on women for its daily activities. Their empowerment is the key to strengthen their participation in the decision-making process, which is the most important key to the socio-economic development. Miss Yuli Mumpuni Widarso, in the opening ceremony, she mentioned the Women, Peace and Security agenda. The international community has always been committed to increase female participation in the conflict prevention, post-conflict situation, and the establishment of peace building. As an example, is given, but what is considering a real milestone of United Nations Security Council resolution, acknowledged as a resolution 1325 regarding women, peace and security. Women empowerment help women to produce and disseminate their own narrative about war, focusing on their active role, the violations they have suffered due to war, the trauma they have experienced, and the influence of these issues on their daily life. Women, unfortunately, in all the world, are underrepresented in the decision-making process position worldwide. However, gender equality and diversity are recognized to have beneficial effects on organization, institution, and the overall economy. I would like to say that I'm part of an Italian inclusive network called NILI, which is the Italian Inclusive Network for Leaders. We are a network composed by a different youth, women and men, and we are working on the leadership. We are provide some training course in order to raise awareness to the importance to leadership. And we always use this motto that I would like to share with all of you. If you are not at the table, you are on the menu. Basically, this motto, it means that if you are not represented at the decision-making table, you are in a financially vulnerable position. You get left out, or worst, you are on the menu. So other people, they are choosing for you. That's why it's really important for us as a women to be part of the table, to sit on the table and to take decision with everyone on that table. On these things, I learned early in my life the importance to getting involved. I started through the youth activism in my society. I was involved in a different initiative in Italy, in Europe, and all around the world. And I learned how it is important to be involved, how it's important to be part of the initiatives. I would like to say, as a young woman, that it's really important for us to be present, to be educated, to raise awareness, to talk with our friends, with our family, the importance of us as a women. We have to be part of the table because it's not enough for us. We don't want to put our destiny in the hands of others people. We have the right to talk for us with our voices, with our background, with our experiences. I would like to say also that as a Moroccan, Italian, Muslim girl here in Italy, I can just talk with my personal experience because I'm not part of the OIC member states, but I'm part of a minority because I'm Muslim. And here in Italy, our religion is a minority comparing the Christian majority community. And I'm really happy that 1 year ago, I met just on the internet, I discovered the beautiful experiences and the beautiful opportunities the OIC gives me. Now I can say that I feel part of a big Muslim community. Even if I'm in Italy, even if I'm living in a non-Muslim country, I feel myself really connected with Muslims from all around the world. At the end, I would like to thank you, all of you. And I would like also to say that we are one ummah. We are all working for the same value, for the same goals. We would like to raise awareness. We would like to give the best example of our religion. We have an important duty as a Muslim in this world. We have to collaborate all together. We have to create new synergies, even if we are distant. Now I'm talking with Italy, and I'm talking with all of you that you are on the other side of the world. This is the powerful of connection. This is the powerful of social media. And subhanallah, I said that 2 years ago, I met Mr. Tantan Tawfiq. And subhanallah, he just saw me that I was in Jakarta. He texted me and we met. 2 years ago, I'm here in this webinar. I'm talking on behalf of ICYF, and I'm here to learn from all of you and to share my personal stories, my personal experience as a Muslim girl in Italy. I would like to say thank you so much for all of you. Happy Ramadan Mubarak to all my sisters and brothers from all over the world. Thank you so much. And terima kasih.
Sama-sama. Thank you very much. Terima kasih to Ms. Khadijah Tirha. So, as the speakers say, there are two important things that need to be discussed. First is education, and second is decision making. So, when women are educated, countries become stronger because no one can take it away from you. And I also learned from her speech that there's one more thing we can learn from. It is, if you are not at the table, you're on the menu. So basically, it means that if you are not represented at the decision-making table, you are in a financially vulnerable position. You get left out, or worse yet, you are on the menu. So in this case, we as a woman, we have to raise our voice. We have to take part at the decision-making. And therefore, we have to collaborate together to live in a different part of the world, but we still need to work together. So thank you very much for the speech. And ready further, let's move to the next session, which is Q&A session. So to all the participants, if you have any question, please raise your hands. Maybe before we jump to the questions from the audiences, actually, I have one question that I want to ask to all the speakers. So maybe we can start by how can men can be a cooperative role to promote women in diplomacy. So I think speakers also mentioned about the role of the man and the women. So the question is about how can men can be a cooperative role to promote women in diplomacy. So maybe we can start from Miss Amal Sweet. Is Miss Amal Sweet still here?
Thank you, Elena.
Yeah.
And I want to thank all ladies. They talk about many important things belong to women. So men have to consider women as a partner, not an enemy, and help her and together to build and to promote their hometown and their country. In Tunisia, we didn't face this problem so much because we took our rights, and the laws guarantee our rights. But I think in Arab world and Muslim world, men have to understand that the time has changed, and today they have to cooperate with women to promote their lives. in daily life and in politics too. And as I see that women everywhere, women in science, women in diplomacy sector, women in politics, in every place now, women researcher. So uh, I think men have to cooperate with the women.
Okay. Thank you very much to Miss Amal Soid.
Hello,
Yes.
hello.
Yes.
Did you hear me? I'm so sorry. I don't know why, but I have a problem in internet, I think. Did you hear me?
Yes. Yes. We heard you.
Okay, thank you.
So is there more? Okay. Is that anything that you want to be added? Or is that enough, Miss Amal Soid? Okay, I think it's enough. So, okay, maybe the next speaker that can answer these questions about how can men can be a cooperative role to promote women in diplomacy. Maybe to Miss Fitria Iskandar. Hello. Okay.
Okay, so in my perspective, I'll talk about how can the man cooperate with the woman in order to tackling the climate change itself, because this is important that men to realize that a woman is the most affected group in the, if we are talking about the climate change effect to the human. And that's, if they are it's everyone awareness, like people should aware that okay, the woman will be affected more because they have more burden in their under their shoulder to take care of the home and children and so on. And if the men already understand about it, of course, especially in the policies, self policy making recommendations, something like that, it will be easy for us women to be involved, because in my perspective, it's not only youth that needed to be listened in the forum, but also women, as there's someone that affected more. And in here, both man or woman should be working together to tackling the climate change, because this earth not only belong to one person, not only belong to a group of people, but it belongs to everyone, regardless of what gender they are. So that's what we need to understand, and that's what we need to highlight with, and understanding the effect and also our role. And I think it will be more easier for us to coordinate and work more in order to tackling the climate change, especially to bring more innovative ways, and also creative a better world for both men or women in this world. So I think, and by understanding the effect and also understanding our role, it will be something, the middle way, both women and men that can work together. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Ms. Fitria Iskandar. Well, I think it's a very interesting answers. Let's move to the next speaker, Miss Ruta Batorik. Is Miss Ruta Batorik here?
Yeah, I am. So in terms of how men can probably support, I think the one thing that's incredibly cardinal is empathy. And I think our religion teaches quite a lot of empathy to us. And so I think if we can just kind of operationalize that in our life, especially even in our political lives, in our diplomacy, I think that would work really well. And the reason I say empathy is because we require a lot of understanding from men to be able to comprehend what women go through. Our lived experiences are very different, just a bus route that a man and I take can be so significantly different between the two of us. Even when we're traveling from we were traveling from the same route for the same position, we have the same starting point and we have the same ending point, but what we feel throughout that journey could be so significantly different. So there needs to be a empathy and understanding on where generally women come from and how that might have informed their backdrop. But other than that, I think men also need to come out of that. I would be a bit more blunt, but they have to come out from this savior complex as well. Women are quite capable of doing things for themselves because they have their own experiences and their own expertise. So if men could just treat them as as human beings who have a working brain and who can contribute independently, that would be more than enough. In a lot of ways, I've seen that on a table, for example, there are very few women on decision making tables, right? If there's just one woman, they're hardly ever heard because they're only put there to fulfill a particular kind of quota. And so we need to come out of the mentality that they're just there because you needed to tick something off a checklist about there being a woman representative on the table, right? So you need to understand that they have their contributions. So yeah, treating people with dignity, respect, and empathy can go a long way. And I think in diplomacy we need that more than ever.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tabatorik. So maybe the last speaker, to Miss Hadija Dirha.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you give us your
Yeah,
opinion?
regarding my perspective, I think that men, they have to understand simply that we have to put into the practice the concept of equality in Islam. They have to know that supporting their women, their children, their daughters, sisters, wives, they have to know that they are simply put into the practice what Islam teaching us. They have to support them without any kind of doubt, because they have to support us as a women, not because, okay, she needs help, I have to support her and blah, blah, blah. No, there is no piety. They have to support women because they believe in her. And another things, unfortunately, a lot of people, they think that gender equality is a women causes. No, gender equality is an universal cause. We all have to support gender equality. It's not all the cause for women. Just women, they have to fight against the inequality in the world. We have to support each others. We have to start from our families, because unfortunately, we have gender equality in our family. We have inequalities in our family. Our member families, they don't believe in the gender equality, and we have to start from them. We have to start from them, raising awareness. After that, we can start working on promotion of gender equality in our society, in our community. So it's really hard because you have to change the mindset of people, the cultural mindset, because there is no link with religion. When people use religion and they justify themselves with our religion, they justify their bad thoughts, their bad behaviors using Islam. No, I don't want to accept this. I always said, no, this is your opinion. You are thinking that women are fair, that women, they can't do like that, they can't do politics and so on. But who told you that women in Islam, they are not be able to do like that? Who told you? You start to say like that because you believe that it's like that. But don't have to, you don't have to use religions in order to justify your bad ideas, your weird ideas against women. So I think we have to start from our families. Men, they have to know that we are supporting each other. If you support me, I will support you. We have to put into the practice the concept of equality. We have equality in our Islam, in our religion. Let's put it into the practice. That's it.
Thank you very much to Ms. Khadija Tilha for the answer. So apparently we have one question for Miss Ruru Usman. So she said that first is about how do we dispel the myth or stereotype that women. Oh, sorry. I think Miss Amal Sweet raised her hand. Is there anything you want to be added?
Yes. I'm sorry, Elena, but I asked to add something.
Oh, yeah.
If I can. So I think that in Islam, women and men are equal before God in the day of Hisab. Even in the Quran, God call his believer, call men and women. So I think we are equal before God, and then we are equal before a society. So I think that maybe there is a solution, but it takes a huge time to change the mentality and the tradition. Is very difficult, and maybe ONGs, government have a big responsibility. Also, families have a big responsibilities to change this mentality. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much to Ms. Amasui. Okay, so maybe we move to the next questions from Ms. Ruru Usman. So Mr. Usman asked about how do we dispel the myth or stereotype that women are too emotional to take charge and to lead, whereas on the other hand, we see efficient leaders, for example, PM Jacinda Ardern, Merkel, and some others. Second is about how is the role of education institution on promoting women in diplomacy. Perhaps the moderator can. Okay, so there are two questions here, but I think due to the time, it's already 10 p.m. here in Jakarta. I think it's very interesting to answer the second question about how is the role of education institution on promoting women in diplomacy. Maybe we can start from Mr. Tabatorik.
Oh, I've actually found the first question far more fascinating than the second one.
Sure. If you want to answer both.
Yeah, I'll do it very quickly. So there are good questions about the myth of women being too emotional and that kind of having an impact on leadership. See, I'm not going to go on a scientific. I don't know the scientific findings behind whether male brain is much more rational than women brain. I don't know that, but what I do know is that there's a sort of myth surrounding the idea of emotion being incorrect and not having a place in the equation of decision making for the leaders, which is very weird. When you're a public leader, when you're supporting and representing the public at large, then being emotional doesn't have to be too bad. I think in a lot of ways, when we see women who are nurturers and caretakers, we find them too emotional because that's what they have to do in order to be, effective caregivers. We've kind of victimized or downgraded emotional as something that is not desirable in decision making, which is not true. We are beings of rational as much as we are, if not more, beings of emotions. And so I think even men need to be a bit more emotional, quote unquote, for them to be able to take good decisions, especially in the political spheres, especially when they are saying and proclaiming that they are representing people and their interest at large. So I, for one, do not relegate emotion to a second class status. And for me, it plays a very important role. So I don't know. I think we fundamentally need to have a paradigm shift in how we view emotion and its place in decision making in the first place, without having to say, because women are too emotional, they can't take decision making. So that's my 2 cents on the first question. Maybe you can ask the second question to somebody else.
Thank you very much. I agree with your statement, but if you want to answer the second question, you're allowed, or you want to give it to another speaker?
Now, because we're short of time, I would rather that the other speakers contribute as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Tabatori. Thank you for your answer. So maybe we can move to the next speaker about how important, how is the role of education institution on promoting women in diplomacy? Maybe Ms. Fitria can give her perspective about it. To Ms. Fitria.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the questions. So, but maybe I cannot give a satisfying answer because my background is from medical student and I'm not really working and focused on the diplomacy. But for me, it is important for women that work a lot in activism because the activism is not only how to work and educate people, but how can you make people, how can you convince people about what you are talking about and what the idea that you want to deliver. And I think this is important. How can you learn in maybe such as formal or non-formal diplomacy school, something like that. But I learned about this diplomacy maybe like just from automatically that I learned it, and not, I don't know, maybe we have something, the step that we need to do, but this is what important for women that work more in in activism, that they need to be educated more and how to deliver the idea and how to deliver the things, the issue that they want everyone to hear about. And yet this school, this institution, the education institution is important not only to shape our mind how to deal with some certain part of knowledge, but also how can we implement it in our real life. Like maybe I'm a medical student and I will be a doctor. How can I make people convinced about the disease and the drugs that I will give them? I think that's a part of diplomacy itself. That's how the diplomacy works. And I think that's my perspective about the education institution working in women in diplomacy. Maybe other speaker can help to add it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the answer, Ms. Vivia Iskandar. So maybe next speaker that can answer the question about how is the role of education institution on promoting women in diplomacy. To Miss Amal Suid. Is Amal Suid here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah.
I think, Elena, that education is very important for women, not only in politics, but in daily life. Because she raised children and she have to find a job. So here in Tunisia, we give a big importance to education, to educate women and little women. And I think that women have to be high qualified in many sectors to be partner or good partner to the men in politics and in diplomacy. So we have to learn. We have to take many trainings uh, uh, to more understand and to be more efficient in our city, in and to promote the political life. So I think personally, I think that education is weapon for women to protect herself and to be strong in the society and in the politics life, because politics life is not um, easy to be strong there. I faced many problems when I was a member of parliament. I was very young, and I was I don't take many trainings in that field, but after that I proved myself, and I found that I see the difference between the two situations. So I encourage all women in the world, not the Arab world or Muslim world, to be bien éduqué. I'm sorry, my English is not that good, but to be educated and to fight, yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much for giving us your perspective, Ms. Amal Sarit.
Might I quickly jump in and give my 2 cents?
Yes,
So in terms of education, you need to understand there's formal education that we get from our educational institutions, and then there's an informal education. For track to diplomacy and beyond, we don't really need formal education. We need opportunities and access to resources, and we need a bit more awareness about how we can do it. All of us who are part of the OIC Youth Forum, we could have been part of these forums with or without a degree program. All it takes is a bit of intent, a good company, a supportive group. And so please don't see see that you need to have formal education to be a good citizen, a good global citizen. That's one. The second thing is, I think, and I speak with respect to how I see things in Pakistan and South Asia in general, we need to have a bit more liberal arts and social sciences education. I know that we're deeply inclined towards what we call as, medical or science fields, but we need to start respecting social sciences and the role that they play in developing soft skills that are very, very important to careers like diplomacy and politicians and so on and so forth. So I think we need to renew our approach to education and start paying more attention to soft skill, which play a very critical role in arenas like diplomacy.
Thank you very much. So we actually need opportunity and access. Thank you very much to Ms. Utavatorik. Maybe last but not least, to our speaker, Ms. Hadija Tirha, the question of how is the role of education institution on promoting women in diplomacy? Maybe you can give us your perspective about it. Ms. Hadija Tirha? Is Ms. Hadija Tirha here? Oh, hello? Oh, maybe there's some technical problem from Ms. Hadija Tirha. So maybe due to the time, it's already 10 past 10 in Indonesia.
Michael?
Oh,
Sorry,
yeah.
I just received a call, that's why, sorry.
Oh, luckily. So yeah, please, Ms. Hadija Tirha, can you give us your perspective about how is the role of education institution?
Oh, you know that I worked for 7 years with youth, with students. So I believe that we have to start from education. Everything is connected, but education is the first step that we have to face, and we have to empower youth if we really want to see the change. So it's really important. We have to educate ourselves, firstly, and we have to raise awareness on the education. Because if we will have a new generation or a current generation well educated, of course, we will have the best representative in our country. And we can really, how can I say, would like to realize high goals, and we will have we will believe in ourselves because we know that we are well educated and we received a good education, a quality education, and we can really reach whatever we want in our life. Of course, sadly, and unfortunately, not in all countries the access to the education is really simple. Sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's pretty impossible. That's why we have to fight in order to provide a quality education for everyone. No one has to stay in the corner or outside to the box. We are all here because we really would like to give education to everyone, starting from our families, starting from grassroots. We have to work from grassroots in order to achieve or to reach the high level position. We have to work together. We can't think that, okay, I would like to be a politician without working in a grassroots level. Okay, I can be a politician, but what about others? What about the people that are suffering 24 hours to 24 hours of poverty, not access to quality education, and healthy problems and issues, and so on. So we have to take into the consideration everyone, not just rich people or so on, you know.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hadija Tirha. Well, actually, I still have so many questions, and I also find some more questions in the column chat, but unfortunately, due to the time, it's already past 13 here in Jakarta time. Maybe we can do more conversation, just like Ms. Rutaba said, that we have make more conversation about women. Maybe we can make more projects or more webinars about women, and hopefully we can still keep in contact to all the speakers here, because it's such amazing speech that you gave us in these sessions. But before we close the meeting today, maybe all the speakers can give their closing statement. We can start from Ms. Fitria Iskandar to the closing statement.
Okay, thank you so much. So maybe it's not really much as closing statement. Just wanted to highlight that we as the women have a biggest role in playing of tackling the climate change, because like Ms. Khadija say, if we are educated women, we educate a nation. And I think this will be applied to if we are talking about the climate change. If we are educate women to tackling the climate change, we will educate people in nation to tackling the climate change itself. So yeah, there will be no inequality if men and women are working together to save the earth itself, because we as human live in this earth together, and this earth not only belong to one person, not only belong to woman, not only belong to men, but it belongs to everyone. And I hope we as women can educate people around us, can influence people to do more green lifestyle, to save the environment, and to help together save the environment and keep working for the woman empowerment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Fitria Iskandar. So let's move to the next speaker, Ms. Amal Sweet.
Thank you, Elena. Maybe in this last time, I want to encourage women to be a part of society, to be a part of ONGs, to be a part of political life, to promote their hometown and their country. Women is a strong part and a strong human being in the world and in his society. I had the chance to learn in Tunisia through my mission in the parliament, and to improve myself at many levels, proving that young women are powerful and a milestone of the Tunisian political scene. We are a key partner in building our nascent democracy. My journey still continues, and challenges will be overcome again and again. So please, women, stay strong and be brave all the time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Amal Sweet. So the next speaker to give the closing statement, let's invite Ms. Khadija Tirha.
Okay, Assalamu alaikum. I would like to say that I'm really happy to be here. I'm really glad to be here. It means a lot for me personally and for all of you, I think. I wish you all the best. I wish you to continue to believe in your dreams, to continue to reach your goals, to continue to work hard, because inshallah you will see the results. It's a long process. We can't fight gender equality or violences in one day. We have to work slowly in this way. No, sorry. We have to work not slowly, but we have to wait the results. And the results, it's always arrive slowly sometimes. So we have to believe that we are in the right way. We are all here because we believe that together we can achieve. We can really be strong together. If we would like to work alone, we won't reach our goal. That's why it's important to collaborate all together, despite all the distance and so on. We are one ummah and we have to work all together, inshallah. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's always a pleasure for me to be here. I always try to give some thoughts, some tips regarding my personal experience. And I hope I was clear. And thank you so much, and Ramadan Kareem to everyone.
Thank you very much, Ms. Khadija Tirha. So to Ms. Tabatori, maybe you can give us some of the closing statement.
Yeah. So I just want to once again thank OIC Youth Indonesia and El Shark Youth Indonesia for inviting me here and making me part of a panel that was full of amazing women doing amazing things in their own respective fields. I obviously want to, I know that Ambassador Yuli Vidarso has left, but I just want to formally register how great it was for her to do the opening speech and give a very comprehensive outline of where women are needed and what needs to be done in and around the world and how Indonesia is sort of leading the world in that kind of sector. So I want to, from the bottom of my heart, thank you to her. I also want to thank Astrid for thinking of me, for thinking that I'm deserving enough to be part of this panel. Of course, you're being incredibly kind. And more than anything, I think Astrid has made use of the pandemic in the most efficient way. She's been leading the team of some amazing volunteers at OIC Youth Indonesia and kind of carving a new chapter in Indonesia by being a woman leader herself. So I just want to celebrate that for a little while and acknowledge the fact that all the hard work she puts in is remarkable and is being admired all the way here in Pakistan. I also want to thank Mr. Tantan, Brother Tantan, who has been the backbone, who's been very supportive. Yeah, who's been very supportive. I know he doesn't speak, but the fact that he's been here quietly listening to the women on this panel speaks volume of what men can actually do to support women, which is actually listen to them. So I want to congratulate you on putting forward a team that is respectful towards women the way it is right now. I also want to quickly congratulate Amal from Tunisia. 25 years, you're just beginning your life, and somehow you've managed to get elected over there. I cannot imagine how difficult that must have been, but the fact that you've done it, the fact that you've been a Muslim woman and done that, and I know that you've only just started, speaks volume and kind of brings an indirect sense of pride in me. And so thank you for that, and I hope you have a wonderful political career. To Fitria, I hope I'm not butchering your name, but you're young and you're working on climate change. You've, again, been working on something so pertinent. And it's young activists like yourselves who've made policy leaders around the world turn their heads. So keep your good work. Amazing. And Khatija's been such a light to the panel. Again, I hope I'm not missing anyone, but if I am, please forgive me. But again, Alina, for moderating it so graciously. Thank you so much. This panel was incredibly important, and it's just the beginning of a conversation that we need to continuously have, because let's be very clear, it's not going to solve itself in a generation. We are thinking, and we have to think for numerous generations that are ahead of us, and that's why this conversation is important. It's not for us, it's for our children and our grandchildren that this conversation will make a difference. So I hope that we remember that. And I know that all of us are giving us a little tips and tricks, but to all the women in the audience, just one little trick: be open to making mistakes. All right, please do not fall into the trap of being perfectionist. Give yourself chances, make mistakes, and that's the only way you're going to learn and grow. And yeah, that would be my closing statement. But once again, thank you so much for having me here.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. बहुत शुक्रिया रुताबा, बहुत शुक्रिया.
Thank you very much to Rutaba, Tariq. And I think Miss Astrid Nadia Rizkita left early because she has some things to do. But once more, I would also like to thank all the speakers here, to Ms. Bunga Rizka Ayu, the advisory board member of OIC Indonesia, also to Her Excellency Ambassador Yuli Mumpuni Widarso, and all the panel speakers, Ms. Ruta Batorik, Ms. Amal Suwid, Ms. Khadijah Tirha, Ms. Fitria Iskandar, and also Ms. Astrid Nadia Rizkita. Thank you for attending this webinar. Hopefully we can make more conversation about this topic, because this is very important. And last but not least, I think I will give the session to the MC, to Ms. Adia Jamil. Thank you very much for having me. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Terima kasih, terima kasih, terima kasih.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Elena. Ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, we are coming to the end of our tonight's program. May I thank you, everyone, for your Okay, I'm sorry. Ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, we are coming to the end of our tonight's program. May I thank you, everyone, for the beautiful and outstanding speakers, and respectable participant for your active participation in this webinar. Before we part ways, I would like to ask everyone to spare a minute to join us capture this historical moment of this collaboration of women discussing a very insightful, interesting, and important matter. Can I have everyone to kindly switch on their cameras to join the photo session? And may I have the committee to help me take a screenshot of the photo session?
Okay. Thank you. I would like to ask everyone in the Zoom room would you be so kind to open the webcam, every one of us. Miss Astrid, Arashi, Miss Tias, Miss Dema, Mr. Raga, Sangka, and everyone. Thank you. And okay, so 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, thank you. I will give back to the moderator, to MC. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Before we end this, I am Adia. On behalf of Al Sharq Youth Indonesia, I would like to apologize for any inconvenience throughout our program, and we hope you enjoy the program. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and Ramadan Mubarak to everyone. May this Ramadan be a blessed one for all of us, inshallah. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.
Waalaikumsalam. Amin.
Community Indonesia. Assalamualaikum.
Bye.
Thank you, the leader, Rutaba Tarik, Hadijah
No,
Tirha.
I'm the one who should be thanking you.
Thank you, Miss Rutaba, and I'm sorry about the name. I forgot to change it.
No, it's quite okay. I was just pulling your leg. I just had no idea you were on the call as well. I just saw somebody named Zimbabwe, and I thought we had somebody from Zimbabwe.
sorry.
It's quite okay.
Just done
Thank you
Nanai.
very much.
Danai Moon before, and I forgot to change the name. You know how hassle to open the profile in Zoom and change it again like that. Every month like that.
I understand. I
Yeah.
understand. Hi, Astrid. How are you doing?
Thank you so much for coming. And
No.
yeah.
Thank you for having me. How are you doing?